Okay, hi everyone. We are about to get started with our Yo Disabled Leadership Speaker Series. We're gonna go ahead and get started as a few more people pop on. So first, before we start, I would like to go over a few accessibility options for this Zoom webinar. First of all, there are captions available. If you click the captioning app or the captioning button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can click it on the toolbar and then it'll take you to closed captioning and to show subtitles. And also Olivia, our other lead, is going to put in the chat a link to use stream text, which is a captioning that will open in your browser. So you can have those two going during the Zoom if you would like. In addition to that, we have two ASL interpreters who will be switching in and out during the webinar. And we would like to encourage all of you to send any questions that you have for Alice during our presentation to the question and answer box on Zoom, and any comments that you have or thoughts that you have in the chat as well. And so those are both open and welcome for you to engage with, as well as doing either questions or comments on Twitter to hashtag #YoDisabledLeadership. So as you are able to do that, you can also mute the chat if that becomes inaccessible due to a screen reader or any other things like that. And so we thank you for being here, and we're excited to hear your thoughts and comments in the chat. I will get started with introducing myself. My name is Tatum Tricarico, and I am a 22-year-old female. My image description right now is I'm wearing a purple top with flowers, purple glasses, and I have big gold earrings on. My background is a purple background with a picture of Alice Wong and the Yo Disabled and Proud leadership circle. And then my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a white woman and I am functionally blind. And my Instagram handle is @blind_person_in_area. And my Twitter is @blindpersonarea. And I will hand it over to Olivia, actually, who is our next youth lead on this project. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia, and I am a white woman with brown hair, and I have achondroplasia, which is a type of dwarfism. And I am using the blue Alice Wong background. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And my Instagram handle is @OliviaGlaubiger. Glaubiger is G as in George, L-A-U, B as in boy, I-G-E-R, and my Twitter is also @OliviaGlaubiger. And today I will be introducing Alice for her interview, and then I will also be watching over the Q&A and the questions on Twitter to decide which ones we pull at the end to ask Alice. And now I would like to introduce Alice, who will be interviewed by Tatum and Evan. Whoopsies!
Quite ready for that.
LOL. And now I would like to introduce our lead of the project, Evan. My apologies.
No worries. Hi everyone. I am Evan Milburn. I am a blonde hair, blue eye man. I am wearing black glasses. I'm wearing a gray shirt. I'm going with a green background with Alice Wong in one corner and the Yo Disabled Cloud logo on the other. And so excited for you all to be here tonight. And yeah, next slide. Next slide, Megan. Some basics for you guys. So you can follow us on Twitter. We are at #YoDisabledLeadership or @YoDisabledCloud. You can live tweet your questions to Alice. Well, we want to preface this by Alice from the preface this saying, you know that we may not get all the questions right away, but she will do her best to answer them in time when she's able. And we are on Instagram at hashtag Yo Disabled Leadership and at Yo Crowd on Instagram as well. Also, before we begin, I feel be remiss if I didn't take a moment of your time to say thank you to some pretty awesome people, both on the stage with us and behind the scenes. First off, our amazing mentors at the CFLC for sharing their wisdom, their expertise, and assisting us in putting on this event. Our amazing ASL interpreters or American Sign Language interpreters and captioner for providing access needs to all of you. And finally, a woman that you've all came to see, Alice Wong, our guest, not only our inaugural guest, but for taking time out of her busy day to come tell us more about her life as an advocate, what inspires her, and how we can help carry out her message. And now I'm going to take it back to Olivia to introduce Alice.
Thank you, Evan. This is Olivia. Okay, now is the time that I do the introduction. I am so pleased to have the honor of introducing our inaugural guest of the Yo Disabled and Proud Speaker Series, Alice Wong. Alice is a disabled activist, media maker, and consultant based in San Francisco, California. She is also the founder and director of the Disability Visibility Project, which is dedicated to creating, sharing, and amplifying disability media and culture. You can find Alice on Twitter at sfdirewolf. And here she is now to be introduced by Tatum and Evan. Tatum, take it away.
Thank you so much for that, Olivia. We are super excited to get to interview Alice today. And Alice, again, thank you for being here. I know that I am super excited to have you here. I have recommended your book to quite a few people and am was very moved by the way that it impacted my life. And so I'm super thankful to have you here. And I think before we quite get started, Evan, do you want to do a little bit of why we are doing this program in the first place and what the Yo Disabled Speaker Series means?
Yeah. So the reason why we came up with the Yo Speaker Series was so that we could connect to mentors and leaders in the disability advocacy world, such as Alice Wong, and hopefully many more people like her to come after her. We also want to do this to kind of connect the disabled community a little, because it's so hard these days to connect with celebrities, for people with disabilities to connect with celebrities and have them as their quote-unquote role models or mentors, because they live such different lives than we do. And so when people like Alice Wong come around and are able to spend some time with us, it means the absolute world to us. And now I'm going to take it to Alice for her visual description.
Well, hey everyone. My name is Alice Wong. Thank you all for having me. For the lovely introductions and all the work that Tatum, Evan, Olivia, and everyone involved in Yo Disabled and Proud in putting together this event. And also a special thank you to Christina Mills for inviting me. I am an Asian American disabled woman. Behind me is a dark background. I am wearing a fuzzy light gray fleece jacket, and there is a mask over my nose attached to a ventilator. And I think, before Tatum starts with the very first question, I do want to respond to what Evan just said, because I don't see myself as a role model or a celebrity. I really want to demystify and just reject that because I'm just an activist and basically a troublemaker like everybody else. I'm learning all the time. I'm growing all the time. I don't know a lot, and I'm happy to share what I know. But I don't want to be held up and put up on a pedestal as a role model because I think, well, I do appreciate people learning and finding value in what I do. I really want people to resist kind of romanticizing, I guess, or idealizing who I am because I'm just a person and I'm just really happy to be here in community with you all. So please, I really want to, I see you all as equals and as fellow members of the community, and I'm just here to be a conversation. So I think that's, I would love to for us to discuss about maybe what it means to be a leader because I think we're all leaders, and there's a lot of different ways to be a leader. And while people think of me as a leader or a celebrity or role model, I also really want to make sure that we don't really, I don't want to, I feel like those things are less important to me personally than really doing the work. So I think I just want to lay that out there and thank you all for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think that is really one of the core reasons for this leadership series is that we want to figure out ways that we can be doing this work too, and ways that we can all get involved and yeah, get to be part of that. So thank you so much for that and for clarifying. And I think before we get too into it, I would just love to hear how you're doing and how, knowing that this year has been such a heavy year for disabled people and probably even further back than just a year for a lot of us. I would love to know how you're doing with this quarantine, how you're doing with this this time as a whole, knowing that that's something that's weighing on each of us in all of the moments that we're doing things like this. So
yeah, thank you for that question, Tatum. And I think this is, completely important because this is the context in which we're having this online event. I think one thing that's interesting is that because of this pandemic, there are a bit more online activities, more ways disabled people to gather and connect and learn and even work. That's there were opportunities that didn't exist before the pandemic, even though disabled people have been fighting for access and accommodations forever, right? And I think only when these things were taken away from non-disabled people, suddenly all these things miraculously came up. And, that to me is the bittersweet moment, right? That's so many things that disabled people have been doing already in terms of online communities, in terms of organizing, in terms of building access in both in-person and online events. So much of that has been erased or not valued or just not identified as disabled wisdom, disabled expertise. But I do think that as hopefully we all make it through this pandemic, that a lot of these things will continue, not just in the disability community, but also the broader community, whether it's the workplaces, whether it's the museums, libraries, concerts, who knows? But I think, that is my, slight, if I want to hope for something, that's it. But it's been rough. I think, as people just see, and as I mentioned in my description, I use a ventilator and clearly a high risk person. And yeah, it's been a really scary time for so many of us. I definitely knew that if I got sick and got infected, that I probably would not survive. So it really, kicked my butt in gear in terms of like what is important, what is not important, what can I do during this time to really make sure that people understand what a lot of people in our community is going through. So I wrote a lot. For last year, I wrote more than I really expected. But that's what happens when you have these kinds of extraordinary circumstances. I have a podcast and I interviewed a lot of disabled people about the pandemic and about how they're experiencing and what they're going through. I think that's really important to me in terms of making sure that we record and document our lives, because this is a historical moment. I mean, like, this is truly an extraordinary moment that's we're all living through. And I don't think that we're going to process the significance of it until many years later. But what I'm doing right now is just trying to document as many stories as possible, just to kind of capture this moment so that we can carry this forward. So hopefully in the future, when the next pandemic, because there will be another pandemic or another major crisis, that we will learn from this. So also, just to bring it back to your original question, basically I have been sheltering at home since last March. I've only been out 3 times in the past year for vaccines. So last October, flu shot. This March and April, I had my first and second dose of the vaccine. So incredibly privileged, incredibly grateful to be able to have access to the vaccine. But that's about it in terms of my world. And I still don't feel safe because of so many things going on. So I pretty much intend to stay at home probably until the summer or fall, because I don't think it's safe yet. And I'm just gonna stay as I am. And yeah, just feeling a little better in terms of having that protection, but not really letting up, in terms of my wariness and being on guard, because there are variants of the virus, and just a lot of people who don't believe in science and that don't believe in masks. So yeah, I don't feel safe just yet. And I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you definitely did. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I feel like that is where a lot of disabled people are right now, is like questioning that safety and feeling comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So you did mention you touched on the podcast in your answer, and you also brought up in your introduction. But tell us a little bit more about the Disability Visibility Project as a whole, and what was the inspiration, I guess, behind, but for the motivation behind why you created, the reasoning behind why you created it.
Yeah, So go way back with me, go way back in time, but before times, in 2014, I was just one person in the disability community, really noticing how the 25th anniversary of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, was coming up in 2015. And there were a lot of different, organizations, getting ready. And, this is a big landmark, anniversary. And I thought, oh, what can I do to contribute? I'm not, at that time, I don't think I was somebody who really identified as an activist, even though I was. I was still working up to that. And I wondered, I'm not attached with any big organization, but what can I do with one person? And I thought a lot about what we see right now, or what we saw right then, in terms of disability history. Like, what do we think of when we think of that? And, we think a lot about the past and about people like Ed Roberts and Judy Cuban, Justin Dart, people like that. But I thought about well, what about the here and now? What about everyday people? They are just as important as the people that we see highlighted every 88th anniversary. So I started out the Disability Visibility Project as a very small 1-year oral history campaign to encourage disabled folks from all over to record their oral histories through a nonprofit called StoryCorps, STORYCORPS. And they have an app. They have, at that time, a location in Chicago, Atlanta, and San Francisco. And I just thought, oh, I'll use social media. I'll create a website. I'll interview my friends, people I think are super badass disabled people. And I'm really lucky to live, at the San Francisco Bay Area where there are so many people. So I thought I would just interview people. I just do that and just add to this archive because StoryCorps has a relationship with the Library of Congress. So people have the option to add the story to their archive. And to me, that was super, super cool. The fact that we're not waiting around for a historian to care about us or write about us. We could do this on our own. We are determining how we tell our own stories, and we're saving it for the future, for future generations. So fast forward now, we've had about 140 oral histories recorded by disabled people from all over the country for the DVP. And, once I started this campaign, it really kind of grew to other things like a blog, like a podcast, like Twitter chats, and other collaborations. So it just organically snowballed into this larger storytelling kind of project.
It's really cool. Yeah, I love that, and I love the way that it evolved into so many different avenues of just telling these stories and I don't know, getting all of that. And I'm wondering just how I just love how interconnected all of the stories feel in your book or in your like podcasts, and I'm just wondering if you found any like connections while you were going, like if there were things that felt similar amongst like all of the people that you were interviewing, or anything that like really stood out as like a common theme in these interviews with like disabled people, and like what I don't know, just kind of like what because you've had the opportunity to speak to so many people, like what is, I don't know, what did that bring up for you and what did that bring up for them?
Yeah, I think for me, the common thread, or just if there is one, is the fact that there's such diversity in our communities. And I say that with plural because, we're not a monolith. There are so many communities within communities. And I really wanted to explore that. And I really wanted to just be the facilitator. I think as an interviewer, I really don't want to center myself. It's really about the person I'm talking to, whether it's, the podcast, whether it's interviews on my blog, things like that, or whether it's editing this anthology. It's not about me, but it's clearly a reflection of what I care about too, as well. But I do think that there's so much brilliance and diversity, I think, throughout all of these kind of stories. And I think that's what really gives me joy. And it also drives my work in the sense that there's so much out there. And I think there's so much out there that even within our community that we don't know about. And then on top of that, sharing that with the broader audience, the wider world. That to me is really important. And I think in particular, as a disabled woman of color, I really want to highlight, disabled people of color because historically, and even now, disability history has been pretty much whitewashed, and most disability representation in popular culture is hella white. And let's just name that, right?
Yeah.
And this is another reason why I do my work, but also last year for the 30th anniversary, here we are back to the ADA. For the 30th anniversary, I published and edited a series of essays on my website, which is free. If people don't have the book, they can go to my website. I did a series of essays by all disabled people of color called ADA 30 in color. And it's about people's reflections and thoughts about ADA 30, also disability rights, also about disability justice in the future. Because I feel like for a lot of these ADA celebrations, we don't make room for critique. We don't make room for, bringing up the real inequities and, still problematic issues within our communities. And the work ahead, it's not to be a Debbie Downer, but it's about really making sure that people who have been left out are really brought in. And I'm not the only one doing this. I just also want to make that clear. There's a lot of other disabled people of color just doing fantastic work. For example, my friend, Sandy Ho, she's the organizer and founder of the Disability and Intersectionality Summit, which is basically a conference that takes place every 2 years, centered on disabled people of color. And this year, 2021, there's an open call for submissions by disabled people of color, and it's going to be online this year. So if anybody's in the audience is interested, they should definitely go to the Disability and Intersectionality Summit. Google it, you'll find the websites, and maybe you'll submit something. But I think, definitely young people should definitely consider sharing, their life, whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful for everyone on here.
Yeah, no, thank you. I wanted to ask a little bit about the what kind of assistive technology do you use? And I know you obviously use a ventilator, but like what kind of assistive technology do you use, and how does it help you? How does it help empower you and get you to be the person you are?
Nothing really in particular that's thought of as assistive technology. Like I think, the wheelchair, the ventilator, I think of those as durable medical equipment, but clearly it could be seen as assistive technology. But basically, I just use my smartphone, my laptop, the internet, social media. There's a quote by, I believe, Sarah Hendrick, Hendren, who's a writer and activist. She basically said, and I think she said this, that all technology is assistive. And I really think of it that way. I don't use any software or hardware that's specifically thought of as assistive technology, but clearly the internet has been a game changer for me and so many of us. I wouldn't be able to work from home for the last 15 years, so I think it has really allowed me to work and organize and socialize and make friends. And, I feel like that's the biggest thing, the internet. And so that's pretty much the assistive technology that I have in mind.
Yeah, that's huge.
So, I'll let you follow up on that. And I know we talked about technology, but you also mentioned social media. What's I guess now that that's kind of, because I'm guessing growing up that wasn't as prevalent as it is now with Facebook and Twitter. And what's it like now being able to access millions of people basically just from a smartphone or your laptop computer?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Now because you have social now because you're big on social media. And I know we've had couple correspondence back and forth, but I don't know what's it like now that always social media is more prevalent and more popular in society, and now that as opposed to when you may have been a time when it wasn't as it wasn't Facebook or Twitter or Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm in my mid-40s or what, and I know that sounds ancient, but those are like, I have lived through many years of pre-social media, and I will say that it's opened up a lot of worlds, people that are disabled from all over the world that I would never be able to be in real life. I've been able to connect with and just follow and learn from. I realized that my own experience is one of many experiences. And I think that's really important because I think sometimes our understanding of disability is shaped initially by our own lived experience. But I think it's, there's so many other aspects that challenge our own ideas. And I think that's really important especially challenged by other disabled people. And I think a lot about who is left out when we think about the disability community. There's so many people, like, for example, with chronic illnesses, or non-apparent disabilities, or intellectual disabilities that still are not really included, or just a lot of people still think they're not disabled enough. And I think I've learned a lot from folks. I've learned a lot from all these different new kind of, very vibrant and real cultures, such as autistic culture, such as Spoony, SPOONIE culture, which is primarily people with chronic illnesses, people with invisible disabilities. So that's been really amazing. And I think that's really through my own kind of exploration and connection with people on social media. So I think that's what I've been able to see and to learn from.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think so helpful that you like mentioned those groups being left out and those ways that even just like people are like unaware of those different groups and cultures and things. And I love I've heard a lot about how social media has kind of become a game changer for the disability community, and that like you mentioned, like it does feel like a piece of assistive technology, and it does feel like something that provides so much for our community. And I just love, like, absolutely love that. And I want to go a little bit, because this is like the Youth Organized Disabled and Proud event. I'm wondering, for some of the youth out there, but particularly for you, what this is a question that we came up with originally, but what would you, if you were like writing a letter to your younger self, what would you want to share? Like, what is like a piece of advice or something that you would think to share with yourself when you were growing up as a disabled person? Because I think right now so many of us are in those like late teens, early 20s, trying to figure it out.
Yes. Well, I guess before I say that, I also just want to mention that, social media and also technology, there's still a lot of work that needs to be made to make it accessible. So I don't want to evangelize social media, because it's still not accessible for a lot of people. So I just want to put that out there as well. Even though I have benefited from it, I think there's still a lot of people that can't access it for a lot of reasons. So I just want to put that out there. I will say that what's really awesome is the fact that all of you are at this age and involved with you. When I came up, there weren't organizations like this. I didn't know a lot of other young disabled people. I didn't come into my disability identity until my late teens, early 20s. And I think, finding community was the hardest part, right? Like, I was craving community, and I knew I was busy. And that's partially the reason why I moved from Indiana to the Bay Area, because I knew there were people there. Like, I just knew. I knew life would be better for me, and I really wanted that. And worked really hard to get here. So to learn to myself, let's say I'm at junior high, because those are like
Yeah.
the most cringy times of my life. Yeah, I'm sure that's still cringy for a lot of people. Cringy, awkward, yucky, all of that. I would just say, like, it really sucks. Like, they really suck right now. And I feel you. I feel you. But it's going to get better. I swear to you that you will find your people, that you will work through, and finally get to a place where you feel comfortable and confident. It may take a lot of time. It's not going to end when you grow up. But it's a process. And you will get there, however you get there, right? Like it's not a linear process. And I would say that for everyone. But, it does suck to be young and to go through so many feelings, so much drama, all the feelings. But, this is the part of growing up. And, I hope that disabled young people, just hopefully find others and just get there to know that you're not alone, even though you feel alone. And that is a very real feeling. And that is a reality for so many of us. But you are not alone. And there are people out there waiting for you and waiting to welcome you. So hang on to that. So that would be it.
Yeah, that's so helpful.
So since Yo is obviously part of the CFLC umbrella, in case you don't know the acronym, California Foundation for Independent Living Centers, I was kind of curious to know what your whole transition to independent, to transitioning from youth to adulthood, what that was like, kind of, and what was your independent living journey?
Well, I think I want to push back on the term independent living because I think there's sometimes when people kind of talk about it, I think they assume that it means living on your own without assistance by yourself, like somehow that's a marker of adulthood or independence. And I really like to talk about interdependence because I think so many of us are interdependent, and that is absolutely one of the strengths of being disabled. The fact that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to need help. And I'll just share with everybody, just I want to be real with everyone. I live with my parents. I'm an adult that lives with my parents. And I'm not embarrassed about that. And I think of that as still part of this independent living, right? And I think there's a lot of, misnomers, right? Like this illusion, or not illusion, but image of what does independent living look like. And it's very different for everyone, right? I think it's more about autonomy and self-determination and being interdependent. That to me is really what I've been able to achieve, not just as a younger adult, but just where I am now, where I am in control of my services. I do have services. that I am the one who is directing them. And I think as a young person, needing assistance from my family before I had personal assistance, I learned about that. I learned how to direct my own care. And I think of that as independent living, even though I think there's a lot of people who say, oh, you've got to move out of your own home. You've got to do X, Y, and Z in order to be quote unquote independent. So I just want to say that it looks different for everyone, and that it's what you make of it, And I think there should be lots of. I would like to see more different kinds of representation of what independent living looks like, because I think in the United States we have this very individualistic culture, right? And I think that's also very much rooted in white disabled people deciding what's independent living means. And I really want to challenge that.
I love that. I want to just comment on that idea of interdependence and just kind of the I don't know, the power that you mentioned that brings to disabled people and how that is I don't know, a part of our lives, and that independent living is I don't know, connected to what we want as disabled people and how we want to live our lives, rather than being completely, I don't know, autonomous or whatever, which is not possible. And so I think I loved what you said about disabled people doing interdependence well, and having that be a strength of disabled people. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more on that, and what how do you think that shows up in the disability community, and what interdependence kind of what that gives even other people from the disabled community, how that, I don't know, how that impacts people.
Yeah, I would say that I think about this pandemic a lot, and I think about disabled people being really there for one another, providing care, providing support. And I feel like that's part of interdependence, to the fact that we all have the capacity to provide care for one another. I think that to me has been personally a lifeline for me, during the pandemic, where, I don't know about what you all think, but it's been really a time where you know who your friends are, right? And that's, everybody can give different things to one another, just based on what they could do. So some friends can text and order things for one another. Another person can drop off things during the pandemic. Another person's really good at making phone calls. Things like that. It's we all help each other in big ways and in small ways. And I think that's really been something I've observed during the pandemic and, before that, right? This is how many of us survived, right? Many of us who are living either near or at poverty, where we either drop off things, we make food for each other, we check in with one another. This is another form of mutual aid and interdependence, but also, people who share their time, and not just their labor, but their time.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that.
I agree. I think if this pandemic taught us anything, if we come out of this pandemic with anything, hopefully it's the silver lining of it. We need for more interdependence. and I think disability community, the people with disability community know that well, but I think everyone else is kind of figuring it out as well with this whole pandemic and relying on other people.
Yep. Should we go to Q&A? I just want to be mindful of time.
Yeah, I think we have one more question,
Oh.
and then we'll jump into Q&A.
Yeah.
Evan, do you wanna?
Hey, I just wanted to make a quick announcement before you guys jump into the 2 last questions to the audience. Please submit your questions to the Q&A. We are taking questions at the end for Alice. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to ask. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Yeah, please go ahead and drop them in while we ask the last 2 questions, and then we'll start asking a couple of yours. But yeah, hopefully we can get a couple more in there.
So my last question is one that I'm inspired because I'm inspired to become a disability advocate like you, Alice. But I just want to know what made you choose this path of disability advocacy and become a disability activist as you are.
I guess, for the most part, I was born disabled, so in a lot of ways, I did have a choice. Right, we're all living in a non-disabled world. We're living in systemic ableism. We're living in white supremacy. We're living in capitalism. So there wasn't really much of a choice to how to navigate and survive this world, but to be an activist and learning to advocate for yourself as, for me in particular, at a very young age. But, then I got older, and I realized, it's not just about myself. It's not just about getting my own needs met, but it's about how to make, try to change systems and to try to make an impact and try to work in collaboration with others, because that's when you can really make an impact when you're connected with others. So yeah, I mean, I didn't have a grand plan. I feel like a lot of what I've done since the beginning of the DVP was very gradual and organic, and things just, one thing led to the other. So I would just say for any person who's interested in being an activist, like, there are no rules. I think no one should feel pressure to be one way to be an activist. You should really make it your own, right? Like, if you're really good at one thing or just passionate about something, just let that lead you. Don't let that guide you. Like, just don't listen to people who say, you're doing it wrong, or do you have to do this 24/7? People should really feel free to resist and take time to rest and take time to just change things up. There is no kind of orthodoxy when it comes to being advocates. And I just really want to share that because I know that a lot of folks feel like they have to do it right, or they're under pressure to be perfect. And there's no such thing as perfect activism. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's super helpful. And it kind of flows directly into our last question that we have for you. And again, continue putting all your questions in the chat for us to get to at the end. But it really flowed very nicely into our last question, which is for those of us who are younger and youth, I don't know, between, I think Yo is 16 and 25 or whatever. For us who are wanting to get involved in this movement. I think you gave quite a bit of advice there, but do you have any like anything you want to add kind of to advice of like how to get involved and like what even just what we can be doing at this point? Like I think one of my hopes in this project is that we learn kind of like what our next move should be and what we can be doing to like move the work that's being done forward and not like, I don't know, like create our own thing, but like be part of this movement.
Yeah, I would say, number one, just be part of you is really exciting. That's you're already all kind of connected. And, you all, I think, as a group, can also really form a consensus of like, what do we want to do? What kind of world do we want to live in? Maybe that's the question, right? What kind of world, what is the future that you want to build? And there's a lot of different ways to go about that. And I think, you should really feel free to like also get involved in other movements, right? Bring your disabled self, bring your disabled perspective into other movements too. So, you do both, right? It's not, you don't have to choose. You can be part of a lot of communities and a lot of movements. I think that's also really important. That's, every issue is a disability issue. And that's, we need disabled people in all movements. And I think that's where, that's the freedom. And that's part of the change that can happen. So if you're passionate about climate justice, get involved in that and talk about disability. If you're passionate about public transit, get involved in that too. And then bring all of that into disability specific spaces. So I think there's so much freedom and movement that people should do. And just feel free to experiment and play and explore. I think that's really important to like keep it loose and have fun. Activism is hard work, but it should also bring you joy. And if it doesn't bring you joy, I think there's something to be said for finding things that bring you joy. Just, if we learned anything from this pandemic, is that time is short. Time is short, and let's all do things that we really care about. Whatever that is, whatever it may be.
Yeah, thank you so much for that and just for answering all of these questions. It's so helpful. I think we're gonna have Olivia pop on and ask one or two of the questions from the chat now. But yeah, that's super helpful. I just love that piece of advice too.
I hope it's helpful.
Hi everyone, it's Olivia. That was such a good interview. Good job, Tatum and Evan. And thank you so much, Alice, for being our inaugural guest of this CO Disabled and Proud series. So now we have gotten some really good questions in the last few minutes, and I'm going to choose two because our time is coming short. All right. The first question I'm going to ask is from Cameron. What has it been like navigating education as a disabled person?
Thanks, Cameron. I'm going to probably give you a very condensed answer, but I grew up at a time before the ADA, so the ADA wasn't passed until I was in high school. So much of my experiences are probably different from maybe your experiences, but I think a lot of the things are still difficult, right? That there's still a lot of challenges. There's still a lot of lack of accessibility, and the challenge of like constantly having to fight for the bare minimum, right? Like this I think is one of the most kind of endemic problems that we still face, is that disabled people still have to ask and advocate for like their basic rights. And that to me is like, what kind of world would it be if like you don't have to spend all that time and energy, every day to fight just for the crumbs. But I think for me, my educational experiences, the most kind of difficult things. I don't know about you, Cameron, but I faced a lot of teachers who really had low expectations. They were really just, didn't see me as a person. And I felt that to be very intimidating, that adults who are supposed to be there for me, I had a few teachers that really worked. And it really shaped, who I became, because I got very angry. And I didn't know what to do with that anger. And that really, was kind of the precursor to becoming an activist. Because I didn't understand why this teacher was, frankly, such an asshole. And let's face it, as young people, you're going to face a lot of adults who are assholes. And you're going to have to deal with that, whether that's unfair or not, right? Like, this is not something young people should have to deal with, but you're going to be discriminated against, and you're going to be have to deal with a lot of lower expectations. And you're going to learn that there's a lot of the same adults who don't know better. And I think that to me was almost a gift, because I grew up really fast. And that's probably, in a nutshell, my educational experiences, where I learned basics like algebra, but I also learned a whole lot about the adult world and how some adults really don't know better, but they should. And I learned how to communicate and plot their destruction. That's a joke. That's a joke. But it sowed the seeds for the kind of adult I want to be. And that's just me.
I feel like that's so true of education, is kind of what a lot of advocates introduces us to, like, we can advocate for ourselves, and like there are people out there who believe they know better than us who don't, and like we have to label that, because we're taught, especially as youth, like, oh, professors know best or adults know best, and it's like, well, you don't.
They really don't. I'm the worst guidance counselor. So please, like, whoever's in authority, question authority. Because authority is built on ableism. Okay? So like,
Yes.
so please, just all you young people, question authority, whether it's a doctor, a teacher, guidance counselor, whatever. Question authority. That's my, if there's one takeaway from today, question authority. Question all of it.
I love it. And it really, this segues really nicely into our last question by Kathleen. She asks, how do you answer when people don't believe that you have full freedom or run your own life?
Yeah, so this thanks, Catherine. I think this is tough because there's a lot of different ways to respond. And sometimes when you're when you have the time and energy, you could educate that person, right? Like, let's say it's a friend or family member that does that. And it hurts, right? It's painful, especially when somebody close to you. But, you can't take the time to say, wow, you really hurt my feelings. And this is why. Mm. And there are other times where, let's say, it's just some stranger on the street or somebody at a restaurant, just some sort of like really rude interaction in public. And those are times where you can either have a very like nasty response if you want. It's up to you. You can have a very snappy response. You can be as rude as you want or angry, or you can just ignore them. And I think, you do what is safe for you and healthy for you. There are times when you do need to let it out, which is healthy. And, there are times when you want to like protect yourself. You realize like, I don't want to burn out. I don't want to be angry all the time. And I want to, just deal with it in my own way, process it. So I think there's a lot of different kind of contexts in which you want to be selective in how you want to respond. But, I think that would be my advice is just you can think about what is the most effective use of your time and energy. And that's, things that you'll just learn from experience. And yeah, that takes time. So I don't know if that helps, Catherine, but just, I think feel free to let loose. If you need to let loose, if you want to give a middle finger, I think it's entirely appropriate. And if you want to just ignore the person, because really, in a way, it's their loss. The fact that they're ignorant. And there's only so many times you can educate people, really, because some people just won't really absorb it and don't want to absorb it. So there's always that too. So yeah, I would just not sure if that helps, but yeah.
It definitely helps. I think like we're held at these standards to behave all the time. We're like, we have to represent this community, and we are people and we're humans, and we can't be educators and teachers and lecturers all the time, when we're going out to get groceries or we're going on a walk or we're just doing simple things. And I think it's so, for you to acknowledge that and say that is nice to hear for the youth to remember. We don't always have to be on, like we can not be an educator or perfect all the time. Like, you're human, be you and let loose. Okay, I think we have we have time for one other question. Are you okay with doing another?
Yeah,
Okay.
awesome.
Okay. I wanted to get to one about your successes of disability visibility. People are asking, well, we have Laura. She says, I'm a big fan. How long did it take to write the book?
Thanks, Laura. So I'm the editor of this anthology. So the anthology took about, I would say, a year and a half. So from the time I did a book proposal to getting a book deal to putting together all of these pieces, it took about a year and a half. And as an editor, it's kind of a different kind of work. I wrote the introduction and, did a lot of work in terms of gathering the pieces editing the pieces. So that was a process. It's kind of like herding cats. So that was a real privilege, but also a real, kind of a labor of love. And I really do hope that people enjoy it because, these are 37 different stories, and it just shows the range and the real kind of breadth and variety of different perspectives and stories from the 21st century. That to me is something hopefully unique, and hopefully there's something for everyone. And I really do hope that it'll be taught in classrooms and in libraries. Just to let you all know, this fall, there will be a young reader, young adult version of Disability Visibility that will have about half of the original essays, plus a new introduction by me for young disabled people. So that's coming out this fall by Delacorte Books. And it's going to be aimed at high schoolers and middle schoolers. So that'll be coming out this fall. Yeah, I'm super excited about it too.
Yeah, that'll be
That's incredible. That's incredible that there'll be a youth version. I think your book really finally brought something to the disability table that we have needed for so long. I mean, just these compilations of stories to show we are not just we can't be generalized. We are such a large community and there is so much, and we are so different, and we have a lot to learn even about ourselves. And so I truly do hope it becomes a part of the education system because it is needed. We are at the end of our event. I want to thank you so much, Alice, for being here, and thank our ASL interpreter and our lead Evan and other lead Tatum. And it's been such a great night, and I will hand it to Evan to have the last words of his big project. And this has been such a success. And Alice, it was so good to meet you and talk to you.
Oh, thank you, Tatum. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you for everyone for attending. Everybody who's here, spending their Tuesday evening. Thank you to the captioners and the interpreters.
I'm trying to pull up who's next. Who's next up? But wow, whoever's next up is going to be has some big shoes to fill, because that was an incredible interview. Thank you, Alice. Sam, who we got next?
Yes, I can give a little bit on that. Our next speaker is going to be Nina Tame, who she lives in the UK, and so we're going to be doing it on a Saturday morning when it's not the middle of the night for her. And she is a disability mentor and activist on social media, and she talks about a wide variety of things, anywhere from ableism to being a parent with a disability to dating and disability. And so we're super excited to hear from her and get all of the information that she has for us. So make sure that you register at, I think it's the same link as this one to register for that. So thank you. And yeah, just thank you again, Alice, for being here. It was wonderful to get to talk with you and interview you, and I had such a great time.
Well, I try to keep it real, and I think all the young people deserve the real talk, right?
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. Then I think we are ready to head out. Oh, and Evan, do you want to introduce the very last thing about the our event on Friday?
Oh yes, we have a Ed Roberts oral history project. Sorry, I'm blanking. what you get will be on Zoom. We have an Ed Roberts Oral History project, part 2, where we're gathering up potential interviewees, or interviewers, I would say, who are youth, so they can interview people like new, and we are compiling a oral history project on Ed Roberts and who he was, so that way his legacy lives on. But it started back on his birthday. Our goal is to end it on his birthday of next year. So please, if you're interested in that, please come join us for that too. We also love to have more people and help share Ed's story.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Yeah, thank you all for
Night.
being here.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here.